Chris Nuzum extraordinaire.
The very one and only.
That's right.
What would you like to talk about, Robin?
Well, I am thrilled to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I will let all of our listeners know that Ashley was not able to make it tonight. However, she said she's very sad because she was looking forward to talking with you because the topic we have today is incredibly interesting and I cannot wait to dive in.
Okay.
Today we are talking to Chris Nuzum, who is a very longtime friend of mine. We met in middle school, Madison, Wisconsin at Thomas Jefferson. And then we both went to Madison Memorial High School on the west side of Madison. I went for 2 years. I went my freshman and sophomore year. And then I moved up to Prescott, Wisconsin. Chris went to James Madison Memorial freshman, sophomore, junior year. And I will never forget the day in Prescott, Wisconsin, when friends of mine came up to my house and said, "Hey, do you know a guy named Chris Nuzum?" And I said, "Yes, of course I do. How do you know Chris?" "Well, he's down at Papa T's Pizza." So I remember hauling behind down to Papa T's, and holy cow, here is my friend from Madison. So I was so thrilled to be able to go through our senior year with you in Prescott, Wisconsin.
Yes.
And we graduated together. So for all of our Madison friends that are listening, Chris and I were able to graduate together, going through most of middle school and high school together.
Yes.
Anything I missed out there? And I had actually been to your house in middle school.
You had. And I
Yep.
knew where you lived in middle school as well. And when we ended up in Prescott, we were 2 blocks away from each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty incredible.
It was super incredible.
Yes. And we had such a fun time.
We had an amazing time. We used to do cleaning sessions together.
Yes.
You used to come over and watch me do my laundry.
Oh, that was Sunday night Q&A. Remember?
Yes.
I would sit on the dryer and we would ask each other questions, like personal things.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was a good time. You've been a lifelong friend.
Yes, as you have for me.
Awesome. But that's not even the most exciting part. The most exciting part is our adult lives. So after high school, Chris and I went into different areas. I went into Lakeland Medical Dental Academy as a medical lab technician, but we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you, but our paths crossed again. So Chris, why don't you tell us where you went after high school?
I went into the Air Force and I was stationed in Wichita, Kansas. And you were in Kansas City, weren't you? Kansas City area?
No, I was in Topeka.
Topeka, that's right.
Yeah. So while Chris was in the military, I had an internship that was in Topeka, Kansas. And one weekend we decided, hey, let's get together and meet up for a weekend. And it ended up being a toga weekend.
Yes.
I believe there is a picture that is still living of us on toga weekend.
Yes. I may have to send that to you.
Yes. If you have it, send it and I will post it.
Okay, I will.
So after that, I moved back to Wisconsin after my internship was over. And Chris, what happened with you?
Well, I was deployed to the Persian Gulf and my work was in mortuary affairs. So I was on a mobility team and we trained monthly in the field. So when the Persian Gulf War occurred, we were deployed for that. So I was in, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, how did you even get stationed or put into mortuary services?
No one wants to go into it. So I had an interest in it and I said, yeah, that's actually my chosen career field. Yes, I will. I take that assignment.
So let's back up a little bit. How did you even know about mortuary affairs? Because it's not something that I would have even known about in high school.
Oh, I didn't have any clue about it.
So how
It
did you
was just,
know?
I went in open general, so they gave me a list of jobs. That's how that worked.
Okay. Now the
Yes.
pieces are falling together.
Yes. I did not want to wait to go into the service. So
Okay.
that's how that happened.
So now you're in the Persian Gulf.
Yes. And when I returned, I got out of the service and I moved back to Wisconsin and then went to school. Went to mortuary school in Milwaukee and then moved here. I was just going to stay for a year to do my internship, but that was 26 years ago. So I've been here ever since.
So you had a really long internship.
Yes.
So tell us about the ups and downs of the career.
Well, you have very little in the way of work-life balance. It's a very demanding job. And I think in the past year, we've seen our workload increase probably 3 times. So it's changing quite a lot. It's, as I said, demanding. It's physically, mentally, and emotionally demanding, but it is very rewarding.
So tell us a little bit about each piece, because I bet a lot of our listeners or overseas listeners don't know anything about mortuary services. And,
Okay.
and besides being friends with you, I wouldn't have known anything about it either.
Okay. Well, funeral service in the United States is pretty unique onto the world. So our country is really the forerunner in embalming. And during the Civil War, arterial embalming came into practice because people wanted their sons shipped home for a proper burial. They wanted to be able to see their sons and fathers one more time and give them the burial that they deserve. And a lot of that is because death is an unknown and it's something you can't control. Traditional funeral services really give people control over something that's uncontrollable, and it empowers them to be able to say goodbye on their own terms. So during the Victorian era, death was it was just a fact of life, and people didn't tiptoe around it. I mean, if you had several children, most of them would probably die in childhood. That's why people had larger families. They planned their homes, and having a home funeral was the expectation. That was what upper class Victorians did. So the middle classes wanted homes to enable them to do the same thing, to mimic their betters. So they would design homes with areas intended to place a casket. That was not abnormal. I mean, it was just part of their culture. And Queen Victoria mourned for Albert for years and years and years. And it was really very popular to imitate the British. So this is really where funeral service got its start in the United States. And the thing that really makes us unique is that we give people funerals that would be funerals for royalty or clergy or statesmen. I mean, those are the people, when you watch the news and you see people lying in state in a large rotunda, you know, we do the same thing here. We're Americans. We like it that way. I mean, we like to have it better. We see ourselves as entitled to these things. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but what we do in the United States is very, very different from the rest of the world.
Interesting. I had
Yes.
no idea that houses back in the day
Mhm.
were designed for
Oh, yes.
a
The
visiting
double
area.
parlors with the doors that can open up and create one large space.
I had no idea.
Yeah. If you were respectable, you had a home funeral.
I see. Well,
Yes. And people would take windows off of houses in order to pass caskets into tiny little homes. So they could do that too for their respectability.
I had no idea.
Yeah. In fact, using a funeral parlor, and this is more of the storefront type of business, was sort of a disgraceful thing to do. You wanted them to prepare the body and then bring it to your home. So things really turned around for funeral service in probably after the Wall Street crash in the 1920s. By then, those houses had gone out of style. Frank Lloyd Wright was cutting edge. I mean, the designs that he was creating, even as a student, influenced how home building was conducted after the First World War. People wanted small homes. They didn't want double parlors and big open kitchens. They wanted things that were concise and easy to clean. There was a big health movement about keeping kitchens clean in that time frame. So no one wanted those big dinosaur houses. Of course, since they're already set up to receive people for funerals, a lot of them turned into funeral homes.
Wow. I had
Yeah.
no idea.
Mm-hmm. So we really have not changed much in the way that we conduct traditional funeral services since the Victorian era.
Wow. Did not know.
Yeah.
Take us through. I know that none of us have typical days. That used to be the big question. Well, what does a typical day look like? Or
Mm-hmm.
when you go on a job interview, what does a typical day look like? We don't have typical days anymore, but tell us something that is somewhat typical for your line of work as a funeral director. What could you typically expect?
What I could typically expect is a phone call in the morning, first thing, saying that someone has died. And I really just do all of the prep work for the companies that I work for.
And what does that entail? What does prep work mean?
I'm a restorative embalmer, so I handle a lot of trauma cases, people who have skull fractures, collapsed heads, autopsies, things like that. So it's very detailed work, and it's good to have a person who focuses on that. It's good to structure a business that way. You have more separation between the family and the body, because if, for me, I get around these families, I get really attached, I start feeling it, it becomes a little bit more real. So I try to, keep the two separate as best I can. So
Otherwise, I'm assuming it would be just emotionally draining day after day after day.
yes,
Okay.
so it's really worked for me, and it's worked for the men that I work with, so they can stay away from that. I mean, they grew up in the area, they know everyone, they're friends with everyone. So it's hard to see a friend or a friend's parent or a friend's child, God forbid. So it's healthier for them to be able to deal with their friends and not have to deal with as much of the reality.
So you receive
But
a call in the morning.
yes, so back on track.
You can always count on me to keep everything on track.
Good. So yes, I'll go in and prepare. Usually after that, if I don't have anything else, if there aren't other things that need to be any other preparation work that needs to be done for an upcoming service, I will do that. And on service days, we're pretty busy all day. If
So
there's a visit, oh,
tell us about a service day.
okay. Well, I'll kind of give you an idea of what a service is. where we live. And this is so different from, region to region of our country. But what we usually see is a 2-day event with 3 separate events. You have a visitation the night before, and that will primarily run from 4 o'clock until 8 o'clock. And that's just a reception. So people can come in and see the family and visit with them and offer their condolences. And families often set up memorabilia from their loved one. So they'll have picture boards and framed art and garments. We have mannequins and busts so we can display garments on. Not uncommon for me to see wedding dresses on display. Someone worked really hard on it and they want it displayed. That's common. But
I don't know
people
that,
do bring in.
I don't know that I've ever seen that in the
You
area.
haven't?
No.
Oh, I mean, if someone's a seamstress and they made their wedding dress and they saved it, the family wants that displayed. So that's what that means.
Okay.
I get a lot of dresses. So mom made this dress and mom made this, or quilts. I get lots and lots of quilts, and we display quilts as well. So
Interesting.
yes,
I would, again,
it's a time themed for the person who has died and for the family to publicly display their grief and have it in a socially acceptable place. So the next morning is the service, the funeral itself. So there'll be a brief visitation prior to the service, just so the family can greet people as they arrive and they're seated. Then there's the funeral itself, and then we go in procession. We usually call for a police escort to stop traffic because people just don't pay attention anymore. So we get in procession to the cemetery where there is another service conducted by a clergy person. And then after that, they usually have a luncheon. These were traditionally held in the church basements, but we're seeing that change because the church women, the women of the church, have active lives. They have things that they want to do during the day. They're retired. They want to go golfing. They want to tend to their gardens. They want to do things in the middle of a Thursday. They don't necessarily want to do that. So we're seeing more, catered things. So people are starting to go through Hy-Vee, and Hy-Vee has menus, and we actually have menus too, and recommendations. Monty's Blue Plate came out and did a service luncheon for us once. So people are changing that. And that is really something that's in our area, the church luncheons. If you're in the city, you're going to a supper club after that. I'd never even heard of a church luncheon until I moved here.
when my dad passed, at the church in DeSoto that we would occasionally go to every now and again,
Mhm.
I did display his military uniform, his dress blues. So I get that.
Sure.
And in the church, the ladies of the church did put on a luncheon after my dad's service. And
Mhm.
those church ladies can make a mean meal.
Oh, they can.
Yes. So
That's
in a-
because they make it with love.
yes. Yes, they do. Well, in that, that was a very small town where I had
Mhm.
my dad's service.
Yes.
When I had his visitation here in Madison, it was completely different. There was no luncheon, or
Mm-mm.
it was just a visitation, and that was that. So interesting.
Yeah, it's very different. I mean, the same when my mother died. I think there were 70 people at the funeral. In our town, in Mineral Point, where I live, these are big, society events. I mean, everyone comes out and everyone goes. I mean, we've had up to 600 people come through in one evening. to see families. And for young people, that's not unusual. But my mother died when she was 41. And I thought, and we all agreed that we thought 70 was a really good turnout. It's just different in the city.
Yeah, I agree. Do you meet with any of the people to talk about how they want their loved one presented in the casket?
Yes, I frequently meet with families over that. They want me to come into the room so they can explain or ask my opinions. I usually get, a couple of suits, a couple of dresses, and they say, which one do you like? You pick it out. You're never wrong. Which one? So yeah, I meet with them a lot. I have a reputation.
Do you do hairstyling or makeup?
I do both.
So can you tell us about how you go about styling a deceased person's hair and how you apply makeup? It seems like a really dumb question, but I'm thinking that it's not as simple as it sounds.
It's not.
Okay.
Or maybe it's just not interesting because I style hair. It's just styling someone's hair while they're laying down. And the reason why I'm self-taught, I can put rollers in. I'm really good at styling people's hair the way they would do it themselves, the way it looks in a picture.
Do you ask for the family to give you pictures on how they want the hair styled?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, I get pictures for makeup and hair.
Okay. And
So,
you are the artist then that does your best in order to represent the way the family wants the deceased to look.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Do you talk about caskets? Is that done by somebody else? Do you talk
Yeah, I
about,
don't really work in the sales aspect of the business. I'm
okay,
really more visual presentation.
okay.
So people come to me with those picture boards and dresses and trophies and things like that. And they say, this is how we want this arranged. Can you make sure that these are in chronological order? Now, we want this grouping for his military service, this for his years playing home talent baseball, things like that. So they give me all of these artifacts and it's up to me to display them.
So have you made picture boards then?
No, they usually bring in the picture boards.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good family thing because if someone dies, you sit down with a group of your family members and you start reminiscing and looking through the pictures. That's an important bonding experience for families. I could not take that away from them. No one could.
Well, I was wondering if some families just didn't, couldn't do it. I remember I was not able to write my father's obituary every time I
Mm-hmm.
started. And most people would say I'm pretty strong, if not one of the most strong person they
Oh,
know.
the strongest one I know.
Yeah. And I could not do that. So I was just wondering if families weren't able to do a picture board, if they brought in pictures for you.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I'll do anything that a family needs me to do. I will get up and read a eulogy if someone's crying and can't do it themselves.
Okay.
It's my job to step forward and take care of these things so the family doesn't have to worry about it.
I bet
We
families are incredibly grateful to you.
They really are. I get a lot of nice cards in the mail and a lot of people who tell me later, thank you so much for what you did.
So
I'll never
that,
forget that.
so really that's where your satisfaction with this career comes into place.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But I think it's an even trade for all the tough stuff. It
I would,
makes it all worth it.
I bet, knowing you, I bet it does make it all worth it. Have you
Yeah.
ever thought about writing a book about your experience in the mortuary field?
Yes.
Oh, you have.
Well, I've toyed with it. I think everyone thinks of those things, but yeah, I have, but it's difficult because I'm I become a fast and close personal friend with these families. And there's a lot of trust that comes along with that. So I'm hesitant to share things. I don't want to divulge. I don't want to make private matters public.
Well,
I'm,
not,
I'm
I wouldn't do that either,
yeah,
but I just find your career as a funeral director really interesting. I mean, I could talk to you for the rest of the evening on all different types of questions
sure.
about your career. So I was just wondering
Mhm.
if you ever thought of writing a book for people who might be interested in the career without divulging any names, any specific things,
Mhm.
just how to get into it, and then going to school and doing internships. I don't know if you did any internships or if you just get hired on.
I did two internships. I did one internship between the second semester and third semester. So yes, that summer I did an internship in Milwaukee. And
And
then
then,
there's a and then there's a 1 year internship that you have to do through the state, and you submit reports to the state, and that's after you take your state board exams. It's very heavily regulated.
okay. And then do you start off as an assistant funeral director or are there
An
levels?
apprentice funeral director. And
Okay.
then after you complete your internship, then you become a licensed funeral director.
Let's talk about your most recent award that you
Oh,
posted on Facebook.
wow. You mean this? I'm
Yes,
not
tell.
admiring it. It's sitting on a stack of papers on top of my printer.
Sure, sure. Tell us about the award.
Oh, that was a recognition for 25 years of service as a funeral director in the state of Wisconsin.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing. How many more
Yes,
years do you think that you'll be in this career?
I don't know. I really don't know. As long as I can physically do the job.
I can see that with you.
Yeah. And this is a job that people do well into their 80s.
So there's no 67 retirement for Chris Nuzum.
I don't know that I want to. I don't really feel a need. It doesn't feel like work. I mean, it doesn't. It feels like it's a part of our community, and just it's a nice place to be. I'm very happy.
I can tell that you're very happy where you're at,
Yes.
knowing
I,
you for all these years.
yes, very happy. And if I get unhappy, then it's up to me to figure it out. So,
That's right.
mhm,
It's up to you.
yep.
Were you ever concerned or are you ever concerned about bodily fluids and
Mhm.
any of the risks of, I'll say, bloodborne pathogens?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I take precautions, and I take that very seriously. I don't touch anything in that room without gloves. And I never see anything as it's clean, it's not sterile. So it's just that sort of environment. And I'm always very careful.
What is one of the best things about your career?
All the people I get to meet. I mean, I get to meet everyone, and I've made friends across the social strata. I've met incredible people just from being a part of the communities that I work in. And you see the same people repetitively, and you get to know them, and it's been nice. It really does make the work feel less burdensome when you are heavily burdened. So it's just a nice thing.
So let's go back to the mental and the physical struggles. Mentally, I think we can all understand
Mhm.
how dealing with what you deal with on a day-to-day basis can lead to, I don't want to say burnout, but certainly it
You
wears
can
on
call it.
you. What about physically? Are you moving the bodies?
Yes.
What is the physical part of your career?
Heavy set people die too, and they're not getting smaller. So I think that the pandemic created, and I even see it in myself. I did a lot of just junk eating, and the gyms were closed, so we couldn't go anywhere. Everyone put on weight during the pandemic. I'm out of shape, so it's hard to move a 350-pound person on my own. So we have an electronic lift, but still to get them from, say, a hospital bed onto a gurney, and then get the gurney in and out of the car, and then make a transfer onto an embalming table is, yeah, it's strenuous.
Mhm. Do you ever have to call in other funeral directors to help?
You could do that, and that's certainly an option. I do not like bothering people. You know how I am.
Yes, I
I
do.
like to do things on my own and my way. So I don't like to bother with calling other people in. And there's often help. I mean, there are always family members who are willing to help if they're there or want to. But yes, I've had to call people in. Fire department, those guys are the best. And the
That's
police
awesome.
too. Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about during COVID. Did you need to take additional precautions besides masking?
Yes, we wore, and this was a big problem for everyone. There was such a demand for Kevlar suits and face shields, and a big run on gloves and foot coverings, and, you know, N95 masks and respirators, and the suppliers, couldn't keep up with it. And FEMA actually had a lot of those supplies. They commandeered a lot of those things and then redistributed it. So we had FEMA received PPE and body bags, and they set up a trailer, a large refrigerated trailer by the sheriff's department. I mean, we were projecting, you know, deaths up to 10 people, 10 to 20 people a day. Thank God it didn't happen. But
Yes.
yeah, it required a lot of planning, a lot of remote meetings with emergency management. We were in close contact with our coroner's office, and we were all working together. I mean, it was a very nice ring of contact for all of the players in our county, the other funeral home in town too. So yes, there's water and blood and chemicals, harsh chemicals in play here. So you have to be protected.
Do you need to wear any type of an inhalation mask or a respirator when you're dealing with the embalming fluids?
I'll say we have an air transfer system in our lab, and it does a great job of drawing everything away from me and out of the room.
So basically a negative pressure room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So obviously I did wear a face shield and a mask during COVID, but ordinarily I don't, because it isn't an issue and I don't want my face to sweat. So I think I wear shop glasses too. I need the bifocals now so I can get in and see what I'm doing.
Chris is getting old.
I am. I went from
Oh,
wearing cheaters over my regular glasses, and just, you win. Fine, they're going bad.
Uh, so earlier you mentioned work-life balance is not there.
It's
How
been
have
tough.
how have you dealt with that through the years?
It's never really been an issue until the last year or so. And I think that since there's really, I mean, we can't slow down the workload. It just, that's nature. So we are taking on additional non-licensed staff to help work at visitations and assist on funerals. So we don't have all three of us tied up every single day. And from October through the beginning of June, I had 4 days off. So
Wow.
it's been tiring and we're all tired. And the best that we can do is just start bringing on people.
So how do you recharge your batteries? Ashley and I talk about that quite a bit with our guests. How do you, number one, do you know how your body best recharges? And number two,
Yes.
how do you do it?
Okay. How I do it, nothing recharges you better than a good meal and a good night's rest. And then a day of something that you can do that relaxes you. I like to work outside. I like to weed the flower beds and, something just simple where you can turn around and feel like you accomplished something and something that's satisfactory in your eyes. So that's what I do.
That sounds like it would work.
It does. It's very satisfying. It's a satisfying feeling to be able to do these things. And yes, I receive comfort, and that's how I recharge.
I can't imagine only having 4 days off since October.
Yeah, feel like I need a long period of rest. So I'm trying to take the summer off. So I'm going to kind of ease up on the work, going to travel. So
Well, tell us about that. Where are you going to travel to?
I'm going to the Canary Islands.
What?
One. Yes.
When are you going?
I am going from the 15th to the 24th.
Of?
August.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Oh, yes. Florian and Karen are going to be there. They go every year. It's Lanzarote. So they invited me to come along and have my vacation with them. So that's what I'm doing.
That sounds wonderful.
Yes. And then Vanessa and I have planned on going to Palm Springs. So I really want to make that a reality.
Okay. For our listeners, Vanessa is episode 10. She too went to Prescott High School.
Yes.
Awesome. You don't have a lot of spare time that I can tell. However, you are going to school as an older student.
Yes, it is. That actually added to my stress. And that was actually a big learning experience for me because I put a lot of pressure on myself to succeed. And I feel that I have not succeeded unless I get an A in a class. So I'm not really willing to settle for B's. I feel that I'm capable of more. So I feel like I'm let down. Well, with work, it made it, and I was studying Hebrew, modern Hebrew. So studying a language is really difficult and you need to devote a lot of time every single day. And I just wasn't getting the time to do it. So it was always a scramble and it was a stressor, and my work wasn't up to scratch in my eyes. So I just finally came to the point where I was just tearing my hair out because I'm going part-time. I'm taking like 2 classes in a language lab. So I was killing myself at work and at school. And I finally came to the point where I said, it's not going to matter. Just give yourself a break. If you get a B, if you get a C, who cares? You can give yourself this one semester to just cut yourself a break and accept what you are capable of doing. And that was a great lesson to learn.
What made you look into going back to school?
I found out that the Wisconsin GI Bill would pay for it. So I thought I would do something that is of interest to me. And I chose Jewish studies with a Hebrew language track because I wanted to become fluent in Hebrew. So when I retire, I can study the Torah in the language in which it was written, and then follow up and read about biblical law and things like that. So you can go to Florida and have your yacht. I'll be fine, just like poring over a Torah scroll. That was my idea. That's what I wanted. And of course, starting Hebrew, I thought, oh, I'm going to become fluent. I'm going to move back under the law of return. Oh, I'm going to be like a Hebrew translator and all this stuff. No, it's hard. It was, and so hard to keep up with because of work. So by the end, I thought, yeah, I'm doing my best and I'm okay with it. It'll be fine. I'm switching my major.
What are you switching it to?
I am switching to Jewish studies with a human rights studies certificate.
Okay.
Because it seems to me, I've taken a lot of Holocaust studies courses, and I look at how I write and how passionately I write about human rights atrocities. And I started thinking back to a time when I took race and ethnicity and how passionate I felt about how people were denigrated. So I thought, well, maybe this is something that I should pursue. So that's what I'm doing.
Congratulations. Good for you.
Thank you.
And also thank you for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Anything else you would like our listeners to know about you or funeral directing?
Okay, well, one thing that I've learned, and this is another great thing that I've been taught by the world and the things that I observe, is if something doesn't make sense to you, it's strange because it's not for you. And I'll give you an example. One time this woman died and the family brought in this great big box full of like little stuffed animals, the cheap ones, you know. So I thought, what am I supposed to do with these? Do they want them displayed? Am I supposed to fill the casket with them? What is this? So I decided just to put them out on a table. I said, this is so weird. Why would this woman want these stuffed animals? Why did she collect them? Well, the answer was she had these stuffed animals on a shelf in her home. And when her grandchildren and great-grandchildren came to visit, they would have a toy to play with. So they had something to cuddle, and they were only allowed to leave them. They had to leave them at her house. They weren't take-home toys. They were grandma toys. So the grandma toys were out so the kids could select the ones that were special to them when they were little. And I thought, see, that's not weird at all. That's beautiful. If you don't understand it, it's not for you.
I think that is the best lesson in life.
I think so. If only everyone would learn it.
And I don't know that everybody knows about it either.
No. How sad.
Very sad.
Yeah.
Well, on a sad note, it has been wonderful chatting with you, Chris.
Been great talking to you, Robin. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. For all of our listeners, stay awesome and keep reaching for your anything.